Welcome to my channel. Before you go ahead, just hit the subscription button and the like button, then make sure you share the video. Thank you. Welcome to today's episode of our online lecture. Today we shall be discussing pressure groups. Pressure groups. What are pressure groups? Pressure groups are an organized interest group whose purpose of formulation is to sway government policies for the benefit of their members through the use of persuasion. To Saka Adebiyi Abdulrasheed and Taye 2019, they see a pressure group as another form of organized civil society organization, that is CLOs, that involved in the organization and articulation of the diverse interests of their members and ensure that government policy suits those members of theirs. The main driving force of pressure group is interest and remains the paramount objective of every pressure groups. Pressure group can as well be seen as a voluntary association or group of individuals who come together for the purpose of the achievement of a particular interest. It is germane to note at this point that pressure group most of the time exists mainly to ensure that government policy tilts towards the interest of their members. So the pressure group may be political, sociocultural, economic, geographically based, or it could be professionally based. Cliffs 2020 sees pressure group as any association of individuals or organization, usually formally organized, that on the basis of one or more shared concern attempt to influence public policy in the favor of its members. Cliffs further assert that interest group evolved naturally from a community of interest that are found in every society. Rationale and modus operandi of pressure group. Rationale and modus operandi of pressure group. What are the purposes and mode of operation of pressure group? It is worth noting that pressure groups are an important aspect of democracy as they perform significant role of policy articulation, monitoring and evaluation of policies. They also serve largely as bridge between their members and government. The government is constantly under the strict watch of pressure group. As such, government is put on the tools to ensure that the delivery of good governance and democracy is ensured. However, their modus operandi differ from one group to another depending on the interest they seek to protect. While some pressure groups could be civil in their approaches, others could be very violent and confrontational in their approach to ensure that government dance to the tune of their members. They could employ the use of lobbying, dialogue, industrial action, strike, for instance, demonstration and protests like Nigerian Labour Congress, Trade Union Congress, Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, among others. They could also employ the use of civil disobedience against the government to drive home their point. E.g., movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta meant in the Niger Delta in the yesteryear used this method. The operation could be local, regional, or national in outlook, depending, however, on the sphere of interest of such pressure groups. Functions of pressure groups. Why are pressure groups formed? What are the primary functions of pressure groups? Number one is the promotion of the interest of the masses. Number two is dissemination of information. Number three is the provision of bridge between the government and the people. Number four, pressure group also serve as watchdog to the government. Number five is education and enlightenment function. And number six, which is the last here, is promotion of good governance. The primary function of every pressure group is to protect and promote the interests of its members and by extension, promotion of the interests and the wills of the masses. Pressure group perform this function by constantly mounting pressure on the government on the area of need of their people and by extension, the general public. Pressure groups all over the world serve as tool for information dissemination from the people to the government, and also sometimes from the government to the people, since they serve as mediators between the government and their members. By providing reliable information to the government and educating their members on government policies, pressure groups indirectly contribute to the sustenance of political system. Pressure groups serve as effective tool of providing link and bridge between the people and the government, and vice versa. It is in this regard that Johnson in 2003 posted that during the First Republic, pressure groups aided in the modification of an abhorrent public policy, such as the Nigeria Aglo Defense Pact, where pressure groups voted in protest to this pact. In other words, pressure groups provide people with the ample opportunity of making their voice heard without necessarily joining politics. Pressure groups serve as watchdog to government and government policy. It is the responsibility of pressure group to ensure that the government and its actions are watched thoroughly and carefully to ensure that whatever policy that is to be implemented is to the interest of the public, especially their members. By so doing, the government is always wary of putting in place obnoxious policy that, because they know that the people through pressure groups will obviously revolt. Pressure groups perform educational and enlightenment functions as they educate and enlighten their members about happening within and outside the government. For a pressure group to be active in the pursuit of its goals and aspirations, consistent enlightenment and education of its members becomes a routinized exercise. It should be noted that pressure groups do not just educate and enlighten members of their group alone, but also they enlighten and also educate the members of the general public on issues such as their fundamental human rights, especially in Nigeria. Civil society organizations and Nigerian bar associations sometimes offer free legal services to the member of the public. Perhaps the most important and opposite function of pressure group is to influence the activities and decisions of government. This they do by either lobbying members of the executive or the legislature, or by outrightly protesting against the actions or inactions of government, thereby forcing the government to toe their line of reasoning and to ensure that policies that are passed by government are in the favor of their members and the general public. Categorization of pressure groups. Categorization of pressure groups. Pressure groups can either be organized group or unorganized group. Organized pressure groups are those pressure groups that are formally organized with known address and well-defined leadership to lead the activities of the group. They have identifiable structure, they have identifiable logos, and they have identifiable offices, and also are registered with trademarks and logos with the government. Example of organized pressure group in Nigeria includes the Nigerian Labour Congress, the National Association of Nigerian Students, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, the Nigerian Medical Association, the Nigerian Bar Association, among others. These pressure groups are known and they are registered. They have the peculiar logo and labels. Some of them have the peculiar colors. They have registered offices, and they are also duly recognized by government. This is what is meant by organized pressure group. On the other hand, we have the unorganized pressure groups that are spontaneous and occasional pressure group that spring up because of a particular issue. They don't have identified structure, they don't have identified leadership, and most of the time they are also not registered with government. And such pressure groups are spontaneously vetted to address a given interest, and they fizzle out almost immediately after their aim is achieved. They lack organizational cohesion and identified leadership structure. They are most of the time unregistered and without a traceable address. They exist basically to address an identified need. Ethnic militia, vigilante groups, Niger Delta militant groups, and the EndSARS protest are valid examples of unorganized pressure groups. Pressure group, according to Lisa and Okoli in 1979, can also either be institutionally based or non-institutionally based. Institutional pressure group are those registered trade unions or registered pressure groups that are formed within the government structure. For instance, Parliamentary Staff Union, National Association of Resident Doctors, Nigerian Union of Teachers, Judiciary Staff Union are examples that fall under this category. The non-institutional based are groups that are formed outside the government department and structure. They include associations like Association of Chambers of Commerce, the Afenifere Group, Arewa Constitution Forum, Ijo Youth Council, Middle Belt Forum, and others. However, G.A. Almond, 1970, categorized pressure group into four groups. To him, there is institutional pressure group, there is associational pressure group, there is non-associational pressure group, and there is the anomic pressure group. Number one, institutional pressure group. His institutional pressure group is similar or same with the one discussed above. Number two, associational group. This group is formal organization of people which is recognized by the relevant authority. They include but not limited to organizations like Nigerian Labour Congress, Nigerian Medical Association, the Nigerian Unions of Teachers, among others. Non-associational pressure group. This non-associational pressure group is similar to the unorganized pressure group as discussed above. It is actually not duly registered. Sometimes it's actually not duly registered, but they are also spontaneous in operation. They come together when the need arises, and it is usually a form of affiliation of people that share either common religion, common family ties, ethnic affiliation, or kinship. Such associations could include Christian Association of Nigeria, Jamal Nasiru Islam, among others. They actually come up when the need arises. The anomic pressure group is very similar to the non-associational pressure group. This group is more disoriented and disorderly in their approaches to issue. They only come to life only when issues that bother their members or member of that group is threatened. They exhibit more violent tendency and go out of existence after the issue clamored for are being addressed. They develop when they feel that the decision-making authorities have alienated them or that their members' interests are being threatened, and therefore feel that the only way they can make their impact felt is through mob action or violence. Example of this is the NSAS protests. Types of pressure groups. We have, apart from the other categorization that we have made earlier on, we have another five types of pressure group. One is a professional and occupational pressure group. Number two is economic pressure group. Number three is promotional pressure group. Number four is social pressure group, and number five is religious pressure group. By professional and occupational pressure group, this kind of pressure groups comprise of people who are of the same occupation or profession whose sole aim is to protect the interest of their members. They are out only for professional and occupational protection of members. Truman, 1951, describes professional pressure groups as an organized association made up of educated professional individuals who came together to protect common interests in line with their profession. For example, we have doctors, engineers, lawyers, among others. In Nigeria, some outstanding professional pressure groups include the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, and the Nigerian Union of Teachers, NUT. On the other hand, occupational pressure groups are comprised of men and women who belong to the same occupation but may not necessarily be of the same profession, whose sole aim is to protect the interest of their members. For instance, Textile Workers Union, Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association, Pengesan, among others. You discover that there are a lot of other professions who come together under this occupational pressure group. There are mechanics, there are engineers, there are lawyers, there are doctors who work in the same organization. Then they form what is known as occupational pressure group. Number two, economic pressure group. This type of pressure group takes into consideration the the pursuit of economic well-being of its members. The members are in most cases engaged in production of certain goods and services. For example, members of this group include men and women who may be farmers, miners, transport workers, among others. It is posited that economic welfare is the sole aim of any economic pressure group. Members of economic pressure groups are in most cases directly involved in the production and distribution of some certain kind of goods and services. In Nigeria, we have Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, MAN, Nigeria Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA, among others, as examples of economic pressure group. Number three, promotional pressure groups. These groups are out to promote some defined interests, not necessarily the interests of just their members. They are sometimes described as humanist group of, for instance, human rights associations seek to defend the right of men and animals who may be victims of abuse and try to prevent cruelty from reoccurring. Johnson 2003 says they are out to secure improved condition of the people's welfare. Example of promotional pressure groups in Nigeria include Red Cross Organization and Rotary Club, among others. The number four example of pressure group in Nigeria here is religious pressure groups, which are made up of people who belong to the same religion and share a common religious faith in influencing either the government decision or the members of the public. They include groups such as Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, the Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs, SCIA, and others as Christian Youth Organization, CYO, and Muslim Youth Organization, MYO, etc. Number five, social pressure groups. This kind of pressure group is formed by members of the society whose membership are largely youth who come in agreement to defend their interests and enhance social unison. This include Old Boys Association of Schools, Alumni Association, Boys Brigade, Girls Guide, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, among others. Advantages of pressure groups. Advantages of pressure groups. Pressure groups allow for the voice of minority groups to be heard in countries like Nigeria, for instance, where minority groups are marginalized in terms of resource allocation and voice. Pressure groups provide the public with the needed voice to draw the attention of government to their interests and the interest of the general public as a whole. Hence, pressure groups play the role of societal watchdog by constantly studying the activities of government, and because of this critical role they play, pressure groups can also help to raise public awareness about some sensitive issues within the country. For example, in Nigeria, there are numerous groups that are focused on gaining attention and awareness on the importance of free press in Nigeria, which in turn will help ensure that the masses is given the opportunity to be heard and will also give the mass media the credibility it requires to function optimally. Pressure groups also perform democratic functions in the sense that they are agents of democracy. Even though they do not contest election or seek to retain government offices, they help in encouraging wider political participation by educating their members on the need to get involved in politics and by extending the ideals of liberal democratic concept of representative government. This, in turn, breeds a politically conscious citizenry, which is a sine qua non for effective governance. Pressure groups provide objective and research-based information to the government and to the general public for policy formulation and public conscientization. In addition, they help to raise awareness about the inept problem encountered by their members, who also are members of the society, and also provide solutions to them. Conclusion: political parties and pressure groups, the melting point. Political parties and pressure groups are two essential elements in modern representative democracy, as both exist to fine-tune the operation of each other, though they are both described as an organized group of men and women who come together to promote a common cause or interest. While one, which is pressure group, is narrower than the other, the political party, the political party has a broader outlook. The two are formed from the larger population of the society. As stated above, political parties and pressure groups both aim to effect change in one form or the other in the polity. One of the major distinctions between political parties and pressure groups, however, is that political parties are principal contenders in election, whereas interest groups are not. Interestingly, an aligning feature of the two groups, that is political parties and pressure group, is that they are both involved in the political process. Political parties are directly involved in the political process because they seek to control public offices, while pressure groups are indirectly involved in political process because they seek only to influence government decision for the good of their members and by implication the general public. Conversely, pressure groups are sometimes directly involved in politics because they may sometimes endorse and sponsor aspirants and candidates for an election to further give credibility to their wishes and aspirations. Another distinction also can be seen in the scope of their outlook and operation. Political parties are more nationalistic and holistic in their operation and membership, while pressure groups are selective, lean in membership, outlook, and operation. Agbaji 1979 holds the view that their approach is limited only to the defense of the desire of their members and thereby makes their scope locally instituted, that is, pressure group. For instance, the Nigerian Bar Association aims at promoting the interests of lawyers and not the interests of the other occupational group by influencing the policies and programs of government and not contesting for public offices. In other words, while interest groups protect only the interests of their members, political parties tend to protect the well-being of the general public, and they cannot do this without seeking public offices. Pressure groups could resort to violence. Sometimes this is the characteristic of the economic interest group, employing the various means available to them for influencing government, such as lobbying, publicity, propaganda, peaceful and public demonstration, among others. While political parties are not known to engage in such method, rather they campaign to the general public so that the general public can consider voting for them during election. The time frame of exercise for pressure groups can be temporal or permanent, but political parties enjoy a partial status of permanence because sometimes party may form coalition in order to reach the ultimate goal of winning election. Some pressure groups may cease to exist immediately after their demands are met, but that is not the case of political parties. Political parties seek to control government for as long as possible under the platform of their party. With this, we have come to the end of our lesson on political parties and pressure group. We have been able to know what political parties are, why they exist, the role they perform, and the types. Also, we have been able to see the definition of pressure group, the rationale for pressure groups, the types, the forms, and the main function and the advantages of pressure group. See you next time in our next class. Thank you.